Okay, so as we get ready to go here again, we do see QQQ and SPY ready to open up at all-time highs here today. QQQ set to open at about 521 here. I don't know. I don't have another target for it right now. I'm gonna have to take a look a little later here at measured moves and see what the measured moves looked like up here since, um, man, that's a tough one to even look at a measured move on. I'm not sure here. So we have to keep an eye. I don't really have a target on the NASDAQ. SPY I do. SPY I still have that 609.32 is the next level to watch here. You know, it's nicely, you saw it respected the half measured move here in the middle, broke back down, and then after breaking through the half measured move, now looks like it's headed to the top of that measured move here. And this is a 3x measured move up here that we've seen that started back here in beginning of September. So, you know, SPY seems to be climbing up in a more controlled and there. So, sorry guys. Yeah, I did have the mute on. Thank you guys for warning me there, and I got that fixed. Bitcoin, like I said, getting hit here last couple of hours. It sort of maxed out around 4 a.m. at 97,000 and then has been declining since. Again, not in any place that I'm worried about or anything here. Looking at support still to be in that 94,500 area, the key support to watch. See if we test that again. Without even testing it, it still remains even more bullish in my opinion, but we'll see what happens there as we keep going. There was talk yesterday about the SEC being Austin, and he is a pro crypto gentleman who has libertarian sort of tendencies and has been pro crypto very much over the years and pro blockchain even more. So that would be good for crypto. We'll see. And that might be why we're seeing more of the alts running today as Bitcoin takes a little bit of a breather. Ethereum nicely above 3,700. Ripple holding above 255 keeps me very happy there. Cardano right around that 120 area is slipping a little bit, but again, I have a pretty good support level here at 115. So even these ones that have been up tremendously are at least holding up pretty nicely, trading sideways here on hourly charts and stuff. So we're holding up pretty well. Chainlink, the other one we started talking about at 16 here, you know, back on, you know, 2 weeks ago, now trading at almost 2460. So that's good to see. Crypto Bitcoin mining companies all sort of up this morning, which is interesting with Bitcoin actually being down. We don't normally see that divergence, but it shows too that I think more of a long-term vision there for a lot of investors. As we look at the indices in general, also, you know, I like to look at the spider sector funds. We do see four of them in the positive. The biggest leader right now, XLK, which I believe is technology. Yes, it is. Not surprising, as we talked, the Mag 7, 6 of the 7 being up right now. XLY, which was just consumer discretionary, up slightly, along with healthcare. Oh, no, that's communications, excuse me, up about 0.15%, and then healthcare just above even here. So we are seeing a mixed bag when it comes to sectors, even with SPY and NASDAQ looking to open again at all-time highs. Didn't notice the Dow. Dow is a little bit away from its all-time high, but looks like again, you know, wouldn't be surprised based on everything else we're seeing if that also opens up at a positive here. So looking good when we do there. Taking a look at the DXY and some of the currencies here so far today. 106,703 here on 708. So we've moved right back into the middle of sort of that range that we had been trading in since, you know, November 14th. We broke slightly below it, and then on the news of Trump's tariffs had moved back up, and we continue to see to be moving back up, as Mr. Flanagan had talked to us about. He does think we'll see one more blow off top towards that 108 here before we see a more pronounced move back to the downside, a little bit of weakening. So we'll talk to him later today and see what's going on there. Um, France has their vote today. I don't know if it happened yet, so we will keep an eye there. Their vote of confidence, so we will definitely keep an eye there at what's going on. Have a lot of stuff to talk about, Mr. Flanagan. With we had Anang Mittal yesterday, who was the former head of digital communications for Representative Johnson, Speaker of the House, who now is back out in the sort of independent lobbying firms type world. He came on, talked a little bit about his views on what's going on with Trump, and my main takeaways there was, as I called it, the Trump naughty and nice list, and we have the Middle East in general on the nice list outside of Iran, China definitely on the naughty list, India on the nice list, the UK on the nice list, and that's what I want to follow up with Mr. Flanagan a little bit about today versus the euro on the down list. And those are sort of the personal connections that the president-elect seems to have in those areas. So we'll see how we think that will move money, because we have seen political news has been a big mover of money, and money moves first. So that's what we want to find out a little bit more today. So we'll follow up more there later on. I am watching. So today we've had some pretty big movers. Yesterday, CRDO, Credo Technology Group, they had gotten a big boost after talk of a connection with NVIDIA. They're a contract with NVIDIA. We can see that they are on earnings and all that moving way up. Up 47% yesterday. And what I'm interested in here, continuation, up another 2.29 cents. So percent, excuse me. So CRDO, one to keep on your watch list today. Another one on your watch list was Pure Storage. We talked about this. I do have some more information on them here. Let me pull this up. Sorry, take a little second here for this to load up for me. And Pure Storage, they raised their fiscal year revenue outlook following their third quarter adjusted earnings revenue that were both beats. And if we look here, their earning beats were about 21% to the upside on their EPS. They were expected to do 41 cents a share, came in at 50 cents, so a nice little beat there. And top number revenue up about 2% from expectation. So that definitely stores well for them. They are a data storage company, and what they talked about was that they've had a transformational design win for its technology within a top four hyperscaler. It didn't name the company that they're working with there, but the four that fall into that category, or the biggest four providers, are Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Alphabet. So a lot of talk there, and they talked about Pure's direct flash technology would be used in massive scale environments currently dominated by hard disk. Steve brought this up yesterday, right? He talked about SSDs, and I explained a little bit more about these solid digital cards that are being used for storage as opposed to the movable hard drives we're so used to, and that they are the wave of the future. So seeing that move up, have seen, some analysts already come out. Guggenheim analyst Howard Marr came out and gave a $93 price target on the stock. Called it his best idea for this area. So even with this move up, you can see the 64.86. Analysts think that there is move to the upside. Seeing that Piper Sandler also just raised their price target to 76. So again, even some little more upside looked at there. My takeaway again continues to be that AI is the dominating factor. Guidance that tells people that there is some movement in that area has got things just jumping. So definitely one to keep an eye on. CRM, Salesforce, was another one here that had really good earnings. They've gone up 12% or so, 11.3, and about a half a point yesterday after their third quarter earnings. They did slightly miss on their numbers here. If I pull it up, they missed on EPS, but we're talking about, they were looking at doing $2.44. They did $2.41. So about a 1%, 1.5% move to the downside there. They did have a top number beat on revenue, uh, up about 1%. But again, talked a lot about their Salesforce CEO, Mark Benoff, said that Agentforce, which enables Salesforce customers to use artificial intelligent agents to handle tasks in areas like sales, marketing, and commerce, was at the heart of groundbreaking transformation. So again, these software companies, they just keep talking more and more about AI, right? So it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And when we go to one of the next ones here, I want to talk about Marvell, the chip maker. Same thing, right? We see Marvell up about 16.5% here on their earnings reports yesterday. And again, if we look, they had a nice 5.89% beat. They were looking for 40.6 cents, came in at 43 cents, and then top line revenue beat by about 4%, up at 1.52 billion versus the estimate at 1.46 billion. So a nice little beat by Marvell. Revenue rose 19% on a sequential basis, which the company said was well above its midpoint of its guidance, adding that growth was driven by strong demand from AI. Again, we hear it in every one of these, earnings reports. For the fourth quarter, Marvell said it expects another 19% sequential revenue growth, which is again right at about the midpoint of the guidance. And then for year over year, they expect revenue growth to accelerate significantly to 26%, beginning what they call the new era of growth for Marvell. So we definitely see that moving on those news. Okta, another software company here, Okta, OKTA, moving up nicely here in the pre-market hours. They also had earnings. Their earnings was a beat on both levels, almost a 15% beat on EPS, looking for 58.5 cents, came in at 67, and then about a 2.35% beat on top line revenue. So we're seeing that nice move up here by those. We did have one, sort of miss here. Torrid, which is an internet retailer. They had a huge miss. They were expected to come in at little under a penny, or almost about just a little over a half a penny on the EPS to the positive. They actually came in at a loss of 0.01. So a penny loss per there, and then their revenue missed by about 1.76%. And if we look, just worse than expected results in issuing revenue guidance below former estimates. So we did see some misses. That was the big one. Two others that started up positive on the day, but now have gone negative as people digest news, I guess. Our Couchbase, which is a cloud database platform, they reported a narrower than expected adjusted loss and revenue of 51.6 million that beat estimates. Their subscription revenue in the period rose 12%, but the stock fell, as I said here, almost 10%, on the news, and because of their estimations of just a small miss on it here. In fact, this has it. TradingView has it as a beat on both. EPS was a slight miss on some other places I've seen reported. So they are moving to the downside. Box also moving down slightly here. Not too much, pretty much muted on their earnings here. I did see analyst report come out already though. And where is that one? Yeah, price target of $36, trading at about 33.74. So pretty much a good idea of why it's sort of muted is, those numbers. Other things I was watching today. Hormel down about 3.2% after their fiscal report. They had a little bit of a miss here also. They slightly were down by about a third of a penny here. 42 cents versus 0.423 was expected for their EPS, and a slight miss on their top line revenue. Um, didn't have a huge ton takeaway there. As to anything to really look into, it says markets are forward looking, and Hormel, which sells prepared foods like pizza toppings and meat, didn't offer much good news with the forecast. They didn't offer much bad news. Sort of just a blah blah earnings reports, and it's had sort of a blah blah reaction to that. Dollar Tree also had earnings reports here. This morning they did have a little bit of a beat, so we are seeing almost a 5% win on their EPS, $1.12 versus $1.06, and a slight beat on their top line revenue. So, we have been in the middle of earnings seasons lately, and we see it playing out today. Foot Locker, and Foot Locker was the other one I did have to bring up. They did have a miss here. So one of the retailers, we saw some good news. We saw bad news last week by some of the retailers, which led to some drops after Kohl's earnings. We saw a rebound as Dick's and some others gave some good news. Big stores like Walmart, Amazon, all talked about as winners. What we did see is another loser here was Foot Locker. And we do see that they had a EPS miss of about 7 cents per share, expected to be at about 40 cents, came in at 33, and a slight miss on their top line revenue also. So they've been hit pretty hard here, down almost 20% between yesterday and today on that news. Okay, let's see what we've got going on here as we head into earnings. Those were the big things I was looking at. I do want to take a quick look and see how our pumpers are. We've seen some good morning pumpers continue to give us some plays here. So I do want to take a look at the pre-market pumpers, see if anything comes out. I see a couple of the repeat offenders, as I call them, CNEY here, which we know has been a pumper on a few different occasions. And you can see this one's on a third leg here. This one is interesting. And you can see I actually have a level already put in here. I wanted to see if it was going to retest this support at this 71 level. Hasn't quite gotten down that low yet, but this is one I'm interested in here on a break of about this 84 cents. We get above 84 cents here, you've got room to $1.05. So definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on here again at CNEY. Serum SRM, another one of those, perennial pumpers, as you can see here, and I pull up the chart that does just crazy moves. Part of these are all about listings, right? We know that if in the NASDAQ you don't maintain $1, you have threat of delisting. So what happens a lot of times as they'll make exclusive moves up towards those levels as institutional buyers that hold parts of these companies don't want to see it delisted and put to the over-the-counter markets. So they will sometimes buy this up and move it into that range. And then once we've seen is when you hit these dollar levels, as you saw here a couple of times, especially here, it broke $1. It ran all the way up to $1.25, broke $1 here, ran up to $1.12, and muted here, wasn't able to do it. So again, the big thing is if it breaks $1 for that run, but it looks like it wants to make a run back up towards those levels, so we'll keep an eye there. The big winner has been CYCN here, and again, this one looks like it's definitely still in play. So we definitely have some to keep in play here. Again, the ones I would be watching, CYCN here, especially this hold VWAP, which is $5. Looks like it wants to make a run back up towards the 7. Looking pretty good here. This is one that I would actually be looking to get in right now, quite honestly. So this is one that's definitely looking juicy. CNEY, SRM, HRTX was another one that we're watching here. This one would have to make a move back through that VWAP around 222. But all these definitely in play here this morning, so we will keep an eye on those. We're about for, whoa, I just shut that down instead of hitting the minimize. Give me 1 second here to pull that back up for us. There we go. Okay, now why isn't that working for me? Huh. So let's just pull that up. Sorry, here, just trying to fix an issue that I had. Okay, so as we get ready to open here, keeping an eye, gold's at about 26.50 here, so not much of a move, similar to yesterday's level. Same thing, silver at 31, still fairly similar. They're not really moving too much. Silver is got rebounding after dropping down to that low below 30. We do see crude getting back above the $70 handle, so now that looks to an area here to see if we can get through that 50-day MA. It's knocked us down the last couple of times we've tried to get through it here, going back to basically mid-October. So we'll see what we get for a move on WTI here. Talked about base already. Talked about CRM already. GitLab up about 5% here today. MSTR trading back around 373 here it was, so now it's up about 380 something, right? Yeah, 380. It hasn't been able to make that move back through 400, so it'll be interesting to see if that starts to catch any momentum here today. Snowflake getting a little bit of love here, up 2% this morning in pre-market after being up 2% yesterday. We talked about a little bit of a bounce back in healthcare, seeing UNH up about 1.28, so that would lead us to that area. Walmart giving back most of the gains we saw yesterday so far. Okay, we are about 2 minutes away from open. I did have some other stories to talk about today. A big one, which it's funny that it hasn't hurt the chip sector as bad as I thought it would, is definitely, China has banned rare mineral exports to the U.S. It is a big deal. We get a lot of the materials, or those companies get a lot of materials that are needed to make chips. But what they talked about in a couple of the articles that I was reading is that, the reason we're seeing a muted reaction and why we actually see all of the chip makers up today is that China had already imposed curbs on gallium and germanium, which are the big two that come in that. So, they don't think that this is going to be as huge a deal as we've seen from others. So we'll see if that's the case. We'll see what's going on there. But that has been definitely the talk that we've seen. And we do see pretty much all of the chip companies up here, pretty nicely. AVGO actually leading the way today when it comes to the big chip companies. We are now open here, so let's see what we get off the start as we look across. Tick opening up negative about 120 here, so the tick is slightly down. I am seeing an advanced decline though, up. It's right about 570 here. So we do see advance. Oh, it's moving down though in the wrong direction. First moves of the day on the QQQ look to be bouncing back up a little bit after dropping down over the last half hour. So we did print and at open a new all-time high here. So on QQQ, SPY also opened up with an all-time high. We did not see it quite on the Dow. The Dow getting hit a little bit, but all of them moving up here a little bit nicely as we start off. Bitcoin moving back up here too as we open 95,776. It's been moving up here over the last half hour. Amazon now up 1.6% again today. So another one that is moving up here in the pre-market. Seeing some things turning red though. Baba just turned red. Bank of America. We know about Crouchbase. Best Buy down. Brown Forman had their earnings. They have earnings today, excuse me. So they have earnings today. Be interesting to see Brown Forman. For those that don't know, the company behind Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Finlandia Vodka, and many other brands. Let's take a look at the sectors here, see what we got going on. Nat gas trying to bounce back up from that 290 level here. So I think it had gotten as low as 288 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 287 actually. So trying to bounce back up here, but I think based upon everything I've seen in the whole Widowmaker contango, I will be staying out of that trade right now. SPY moving up a little bit, QQQ rather flat, right around up about 0.6 of a point. We did see a move up by WTI here and continuing to move up here this morning. Hadn't seen much news on OPEC personally today that could be moving this needle, but I could definitely be wrong there. And one of those, I don't know why this is the case. I'm noticing a few different trading view symbols that used to give you a percentage up and down that are not doing it today. I don't know if that's my computer or if that is actually it. So we'll see here. I know that I do want to apologize. I know we're having some technical difficulties with internet here in my area of Ohio right now. Mag 7 though opening up, we see Meta and Tesla are negative. Netflix just went negative. Everything else positive. Nothing really too big to the upside outside of Amazon approaching 1.7% up. Nvidia also up over a point here. On crypto, we see Bitcoin moving up nicely here, 96,187, so moving up nicely. Again, the biggest sort of news that I have on Bitcoin was the SEC, if that is who President-elect Trump goes with, that it was a positive. I feel it's going to be positive whomever it is. So I wasn't really, worried too much about that. Not seeing anything blowing my mind off on crypto news so far. No, nothing really. Okay. Let's take a look here. Let's see if any of our pumpers are moving. Nothing going on with CVCN yet. CNEY did move right off that bottom spot, broke through that VWAP, so this one is in play here. I would definitely be looking at it. CNEY definitely in play here for a move back up towards 108 from the 83 it's at now, especially if it holds VWAP here. So this is one that is in play from that 71.41 I talked about. Let's see what happens here, but definitely trying to move up. SRM, another one we talked about. It is moving up also. It broke through VWAP here, so this is the one again. It's got room up towards 180 here, so you do have Serum moving to the upside here. HRTX did not. It dropped out of range. Let's take a look at CCRN. It's holding steady. Nothing really going on there. Nothing going on in that one. Take a look at Nutribrand. That doesn't have enough volume. XQ we know is one here. XQ is going here. Here you go. XQ broke through VWAP here. It looks like it has been halted at 1960 here. So here's your runner so far this morning. Keep an eye on this. Not a huge amount of volume yet, though. We need a volume spike. If it gets a volume spike out of this stop, right now it's showing a 1960. I don't see a spread on it. This would be one to keep an eye on. Again, XCUR, XCUR. to today's watch list. I do also want to add CNUY. That CNUY is dropping away. They are both sort of dropping away. Okay, let's see what we get for runners here. Tick is negative about 140 here. SPY and QQQ holding up though, so I'm not sure where these losses are coming from. Everything looking green. The rut is up about 0.34% here. You see QQQ still holding at that 0.6% up. SPY's been right up about 0.3% up, holding right there. VIX down around 13 here. Definitely those that are looking to buy some protection here moving into the new year. Not a bad place to look right now, in my opinion, at all. Would be, that area. So definitely want to keep an eye on. Definitely I will be keeping my eye on here. Seeing some articles come out on Twitter here. Norway should begin the process of divesting its Russian assets, its central bank says here. So that's interesting. Oh, the other news. Lilly was moving up nicely here this morning on news that it had up about 1.8% here on news that it outperformed other weight loss drugs in especially Novo Nordisk's in a head-to-head trial. So we had seen Lilly moving up on that news. Tick is still slightly negative, advanced decline. Looks like it's coming in at plus 683 though. I am noticing an advanced decline that's negative on the Nasdaq here. So more of the Nasdaq in a loss than at a win right now. But with the Mag 7 mostly up, we see QQQ holding up about 0.6 point. So we will keep an eye there. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on here. QQQ is dropping down here over the last few seconds. So we're back down around 519.60. So now moving to the lows of the day here as we see. CYCN, as we know, had been halted. Let's see what that does off of the halt here. It came off of halt now at $6 back on halt. So that one has moved up nicely here. So it moved up again nicely. NOTV, another one that's been halted. This one's definitely in play too. So you got a couple in play here. Let's save this to the watch list. It's already on there. This is one of the ones I was already watching. There you go. XQ, another one we were watching here. Coming off a halt. So we got a few coming off a halt here. See what SRM's doing. See, it's right out about VWAP here. This one will be interesting as it comes off halt too. So all the big pumpers are all going to be coming off a halt at a very similar time. CNEY off a halt, moving down here. Drop back below its support level here. Let's see if it breaks back through this line. Could give you an interesting play, but it's got to break back above that 71.41 here. It was at 19. NOTV should be the first one to come off halt here. So these are definitely moving. $4.43. Right, here you go. Off XCure off a halt 2030. Let me just get all it again. Let's see here. So definitely seeing the pumpers. XCure, CNEY, NOTV. Tick down, moving closer to positive here, down only 100. We've seen that move around tremendously here over the last few minutes. Advanced decline remaining positive about 700 now, so moving down a little bit there. But when we look, SPY holding up right around 0.3 of a percentage point up. QQQ holding up nicely right around 0.6 of a percentage point up. I do see the rut coming back up a little bit here, up at the high of the day. Again, looks like it wants to challenge its 52-week high here at 2466. RUI, the rut 1000, trying to get back above that 33.39 level that we saw again. Another one close to all-time highs here. So any way you look at it, the market's trying to break all-time highs across everything here. Dow, the only one of the major indices not to break through it so far today, but it has pushed up towards that spot without a doubt. Bitcoin coming back nicely here above 96, almost 500 here. Talked a little bit about Ethereum above 3750 now. We'd like to see that. Gold holding right about that 2650 level. And when we look at the Mag 7 now, Tesla has gone negative on the day. Netflix trying to go positive. Meta has flipped. Meta had been down on the day and now nicely moving back. We'll mention that we saw yesterday when we had Jay Sutherland in, the senior vice president with Trade Pulse, and we'll be putting that interview up a little bit later on our YouTube station today. He talked about how Trade Pulse had pointed out yesterday, right around 10:30, it showed a inflow and massive inflow into the Meta. And if you had followed that trade yesterday, you can see how that moved up nicely from that 10 a.m. area, moving all the way from 594 towards 617. So again, those volume indicators on Trade Pulse really are great indicators, and we see it coming back a little bit here on Meta today, again the same similar way. Nvidia slipping down a little bit here now, down up about a half a point. It had been up over a point here, so that one is starting to give up a little bit of its momentum here. Tick now moving a little bit more negative, down about 250 here. VIX has broken back across the 13 handle. Let's see if any of those pumpers are moving. XQ continues to move to the upside here again. This is one we've been watching since pre-market here. Same thing, CNEY coming back down. Can't get back above that 70. That one would worry me now, to be honest with you. NOTV's made another move up here again. This one, another nice move up here. Talked about it when it broke VWAP at 405. Now at 453, 445. Let's take a look at CYCN. See if that came off a halt yet. It did. Look at that, $8, man. Look at that. CYCN. We talked about it here. Look at that move up. Wow. It blasted. I said to look for it to get to 711. It blasted right through that. Look at that. As soon as it broke through VWAP, right? Look at that explosive move to the upside here. Do not chase. Do not chase this. But that was one there we definitely could have seen. We saw the move on it. So one of the three, that's what you're looking at, because when they take off hard. So that is what you're looking at. And the second one, XCure, has made its move too, you know. Again, not as huge a move, but we were looking at it here. We actually looked at it here right up before 9:30. We had 17.44. Now at 20.50, it had gotten as high as 21.24. So again, these pumpers are moving. Sandy Y, the only one that doesn't seem to want to play today are the ones we looked at earlier this morning. So let's go back to that list here. Serum SRM trying to make its move. It's back through VWAP here. So this is one that's in play too at $1.44. Looking for a move up here towards about $1.80. So another one in play here. SRM. HRTX, not as much. CCRN isn't doing anything once it made that move. That's moving in the wrong direction. NTRB made its move, but it was too low a volume to play around with. That's moving the wrong way. That's moving the wrong way. XCure was moving in the right way. Still moving the right way. 2038 here. So this is another one. You've got room up towards that 24 level here. 24 would I be looking at here. Does look like it's been halted again. XCure. Halted here at 2038. See if any of these others are giving us any life here. It doesn't look like it so far. Volume. Marvell retracing a little bit. CYCN 768 here, still back. It's back open here, so back open 766. Again, we started watching this one here at 924. Right about this range here when it broke through the VWAP at about 511. So another nice one in here. Did not get into those today. Hey, Frank, what's going on? And Steve, good to see you checking in here on us. Have a couple of runners here, Steve, you would have liked today. This one's continuing to move here. CYCN moving to the upside. So definitely the one that seems to have the most momentum here. Looking at SRM also as a little bit of a pumper here. CNEY still moving down, not regaining that spot. Okay, so that's what we got on the pumpers so far. We will have our main man, Stephen Flanagan, the guy that knows everything when it comes to the currency markets, coming on here in a few minutes. Give me 1 second to get ready for him too. I'm going to put up our coming right back screen while I set his screen up here. Give me 1 second. I'll be back in under 2 minutes. Okay, everybody, I am back and I'll be ready for him, Mr. Flanagan, when he checks in here in a few minutes. Let's take a look here. So XQ holding up at about 21.25 here again. We're looking for a move back there to the $24 mark. CNEY was still dropping away here, so it hasn't been able to find footing, get back above that 71.41 we would need to see there. NOTV looks like it's stalling out in that 450 area here. Did get as high as 462, but does look like it is tiring out also here. So the first part of the morning pumpers seem to be sort of losing their momentum here. We'll keep an eye on them though, although XQ just made another move up here. So XQ is still trying to make a move here. It seems to be the one that wants to play. Ticket has gone positive now, and we finally do see us moving the needle a little bit. QQQ has been moving back up after dropping down to that 519 level, now back up above 520, up about 7/10 of a percentage point. So moving, like we said, a little bit in the correct decision there. Do see a new news release here. ECB President Lagarde, we will continue to lower rates, but we can't say at what pace. Again, we'll follow up with Stephen Flanagan on that here in a few minutes, see what he has to say there. PMI did come out today. U.S. Services PMI came out at 56.1 versus a 57 previous. The estimate had been 57. So PMI down a little low, but as Steve has talked about, above 50 at least means we're not moving in the wrong direction. It is, 50 sort of that neutral area. Above that means we're doing good. Below it, not so good. And the U.S. S&P Global Composite PMI was 54.9 versus 55.3 previous and an estimate of 55.3. So they didn't get to estimates. They did beat last listing. So whoa, just seeing this too. I didn't see this. The CEO of United Health Insurance arm, Brian Thompson, was fatally shot outside a hotel in New York City. Wow, that's a interesting headline to see there. Um, okay, let's keep our eyes here. Up about 3/4 of a point now on QQQ, moving to the upside. SPY now up almost 4/10 of a percentage. We can see that's been moving up nicely here over the last 20 minutes or so. Bitcoin 96,213. So it tried to make a move above 96.5, rejected sort of at that 96.5 level. Again, I like the consolidation here. The only thing that does have me a little bit wary right now today is we do see this descending on the daily channel. We're starting to form a downward heading upper trend line. So I don't like to see that upper trend line forming in that negative direction. Let's see if we can get a move above it. The good thing is once we break those trend lines, what tends to happen, we tend to see ourselves run. I do see our main man, Stephen Flanagan's in here a few minutes early. I will get him loaded right up here into the screen and we can start to get him to tell us what is going on in the world of money today. If it wants to, there it goes. It wants to work for me. Why do I have his head cut off though? Give me 1 second to put back on the top part of Steve's head here. He definitely want to keep him like that. Let's see what I can do. And there it is. Now we're talking. Okay, let me bring him in here now that I don't have his head cut in half. Stephen Flanagan, how are we doing this fine Wednesday?
Doing great, Howard. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So I just said Lagarde just came out, I saw, and said that they will cut rates, but at her pace. What does that mean?
Well, this is what we talked about on Monday about Lagarde having two comments. Let's start off with her first ones that she came out with economic growth in the Eurozone will be weaker. Oh, there's a shocker.
Yeah, weaker than what? Zero? I mean,
Exactly.
get that defibrillator going.
Yeah, but then she comes out and says, but in the longer term, we are expecting inflation to become more to lower, and we should be able to see lower interest rates, but we're not pre-committing. And now she comes out as you just announced with her comment. Of course, interest rates in Europe must go lower. I mean, this is becoming like such a no-brainer. Look at my favorite, the Fed Goolsby yesterday,
Yeah,
all but saying interest rates are coming lower. They are going to say data dependent, but he gets it. This guy is sharp
right.
as a tack.
Yeah.
And this is the guy I like to follow because he's already getting out in the forward guidance area. Rates are coming down. Get it? They're coming down. Now, right now, markets are on pause. The Dixie trading, what, 106.65.
Yeah.
We're kind of here. Let's see what the payroll number on Friday. And then you've got all the central bank meetings coming out starting next week. So, rightfully, the market is kind of pausing here and waiting for new data.
Yeah, it does seem like we're moving somewhat sideways as I was watching, QQQ and SPY. They were sort of stuck right at that. One was up, 3/10 of a point. One was up, 2/10 of a point, and they weren't moving much. They just sort of made their moves in the pre-market and then have been sliding around the side. Some interesting stuff for you that I have is yesterday I had on our sort of man on Capitol Hill, Anang Mattel. He used to be the head of digital communications for Representative Johnson and very tied in. And he gave me what I am calling the Donald Trump naughty and nice list, just like Santa Claus naughty and nice list. And what he came on, what we were talking about yesterday, I'd love to get your feel on this, is if we talk about the nice list, we've got the Middle East in general outside of Iran. We have India. We have the UK. And then our naughty list, of course, China and the EU zone. So, and what he talked about was where, the president elect is very much a handshake and look you in the eyes and relationship guy as opposed to generational, tie-ins, so to speak. So, with that sort of insights, does, and it seems to me like it follows what you've been talking about with what you see in economies. So, does that sort of switch anything? Does it give us a little bit more impetus and maybe India becomes, something to look at here in the future that, Trump will give them a little bit of a push there, give them benefits on tariffs and things like that?
I think you have to look at India as a major trading bloc against China.
Right.
And so I would
That's what he
look at
said.
India. Yeah, I would definitely be looking at India as something I want to acquire. I just want this Adani news to get kind of past us and see
Right.
how all the pieces shake out. But as far as that naughty, I couldn't agree more with him. The UK is always going to be on our good list. But the EU, and this is the part about Trump, a businessman, that, I kind of step back with a bit of admiration because he sees an opportunity within the EU that is crumbling here. And
Yeah.
we'll see shortly with this French no confidence vote. But he sees an opportunity. This populist movement has already been firmly in place within the EU after their last election in June, and I think he's looking to capitalize on that and maybe move the needle a little bit further as a pro growth to the United States.
Yeah.
Combined, it's all about growth. Growth solves problems. And
Without a
that's where
doubt.
they, right? That's what they need to get. And I think that's the agenda he will be looking to export into the EU.
Yeah, and that was interesting. I thought that was a good takeaway. A couple other takeaways he had for us. You and I have talked a lot about BRICS. He made it clear from a geopolitical spectrum don't expect to see anything really happen there for years and years and years. He said they can't even agree on who's coming and where they're coming to.
Exactly.
His sort of comment. I think you've echoed that a little bit also. So it was, reassuring to get it from the more of the political spectrum than from the money spectrum of it. But that, he definitely talked about that. He also talked about that tariffs are a negotiating ploy and that they are used very much to bring people to the table, and that Trump has been very successful at doing so in the past, and that he expects him to do so to bring people to the table to move across his agendas and his, what he's looking for there. So I thought that was interesting. From his point, and his point was the fact is China and India are never going to agree on stuff that will allow them to sort of come together to form a currency, get that far in bed together. So it was interesting takeaways for me there. What else are we watching so far there, Mr. Flanagan?
Well, I think you touched on a very important point, and that is that the president elect seems to, we're not going to let competitive or uncompetitive advantages in another country's benefit
Yeah.
against the United States. And I think I overheard this morning the head of GM say that, there is no sort of profit margin that factors in China.
Right.
so,
Yeah, it is,
so
and it's all promise. It's all right.
that's
Everything we ever see when we have these companies, whether it's been Starbucks on the food side to GM and Tesla on the outside, is potential. There's X amount of millions of people, but they're never going to give us true, you know, touch to those people, right? Maybe McDonald's, maybe Starbucks to a point, but even then, once they get too big, they copy and make their own version.
and this type of scenario plays very much into a pro dollar. And in fact, we heard that when Trump made his comment about the BRIC nations, now people have said, oh my goodness, Trump is a pro dollar guy. And I was always looking for Steve's input on that,
Uh,
because Steve was part of that administration
yeah.
where Bob Rubin had a strong dollar policy. So I think people seeing that, and that's a lot of these retracements in the dollar at the moment, are going to be shallow. We're already seeing the Dixie back at 106.65, and we're very close back to a resistance break. A 106.80 is going to break us back into this next wave, which I think can push us up to the 108 level. And what I watch for there is, I don't want to see a double top, because
Right.
double tops, when you get these type of moves, are very symptomatic of reversals. So
Absolutely.
I think that that's something we want to watch carefully here. And as we've been saying, the money moves first. Watch the currencies. Right now they're sideways, and so it's correlated with all these other markets.
Okay.
Everything goes sideways here.
So I have from a TA perspective, I have a question for you. So for me on crypto, because wicks don't matter as much as closes do, we watch. So I had it set at to really watch that 107.5 level for a double top in that area, because that's where that's been our head resistance in my opinion. Do we watch wicks more importantly in money and forex? Because I know in certain
It,
things you do. I just
yeah, I like to watch highs and lows
okay,
for one reason. That's where the computer models will
kicked
kick
in.
in the
Yeah,
stop losses, right? And then the second most important is a daily close versus a weekly close,
right,
because when you begin to look at closes in the currency markets, 5 p.m. New York ends the trading day.
right.
Trading resumes at
Oh,
5:01,
one. Yeah, same in
but the
crypto.
value but the value date is different.
Yeah.
So therefore, in currencies, there is a definitive close. And of course, that is exactly what the food that the computer models feed upon. So watch your daily and weekly closes, because they kick in to the broader, larger computer models.
That's what I was wondering, because that's yeah. So I think yep. Oh, that makes perfect sense. So very similar to crypto, where if you're looking for scalping, you got to watch the actual highs and lows, because that's where those vacuum sort of you've talked about before sort of take effect either way. And then again, if you're on a swing trade, you're really watching those daily and weekly closes become very important. It's the one time that's sort of stamped because they trade globally 24/7. You've got to sort of have that reset somewhere where
That's
you
right,
take a
Howard.
look.
And my technical trading goes back into the early 80s when we kept X's and O's, point and figure charts, on a
Sure,
piece of graph paper
that's
on your
amazing.
desk. And then, what we look for in these breakouts, you look for congestion zones. An A chart, look at the chart you have up on the right hand side in the top.
Yeah,
You have a straight line across in that area that you have just broken back below if you just look recently. So a congestion zone, very simple, is an area where you have highs and lows back and forth, back and forth.
yeah,
And if you want to use a simplistic logic, buyers and sellers, one side wins, one side loses. And when we break the congestion zone, that's when the buyers, in the case there, the sellers have won, and the buyers now must get out of trades.
yeah.
That's a very simple way to look at it. But let me tell you, it works in currencies. This is where you get
Everything.
your
It
profit.
works in everything. Price action matters, and you just hit on a huge one. It's one that I love on this, and you can see it. I have it in here, and I have an algorithm that does it that gives me these red resistance zones, and they'll turn green if you fall, get above it, and there.
Yep.
But these are basically just price action zones. If you break through that side, you've cleared out everybody. And as you know, it also comes in where people are in profit. It changes a big amount of people from profit to loss or from loss to profit, and
Right.
that's a big deal. So I love it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. I just wasn't sure. I like to find out as I talk to people that follow different things in the market, the gold people there, are they looking at the same things? Because some things they don't matter. Like, is it doesn't have the same impotence maybe in the gold market or the oil market that it does in Forex or to the stock and equity markets.
Howard, all the markets today are plugged in electronically
That's the
and
big
are
difference.
now
Yeah.
correlated. So it all applies to every market. Old school traders may not look at things, but the massive amount of funds in the world today, right? I think there's over $120 trillion under management throughout the world,
Yeah.
and they're all hooked up computer models to live pricing. So when one market makes an abnormal move, it affects the overall buying and selling that these models throw into the correlated marketplace.
And we see that more and more, right? We've seen these correlation trades that are definitely now more baked in than they ever were because of that, because of the computer model. It's not a person even making that decision. It already is set. If this stock goes, if Nvidia does this, it affects the software stocks this way. It affects the chip stocks this way. It affects the computer makers in this fashion. They've got that stuff all tuned in together, and it causes, like you said,
And
reverberations.
yeah, and let me give you a fresh example that everybody can now relate to: martial law in South Korea. And look at the 10-year treasury.
Oh yeah.
Baboom, an instantaneous move off of what would be somewhat an uncorrelated, but it is correlated because Safe Haven immediately sends funds into the US Treasury market.
Right. Yeah, it's the first place they go to look. Um, yeah, I can't argue with that. We did see, we haven't seen really any news out of China for stimulus here. I've sort of expected that to kind of hit the news here. It seems that the markets are waiting for it. Um, do you think we see that
But
before the end of the year, or you think they're going to wait?
no, I think what's going to happen, and China has had two recent surges in their liquidity to the markets, and both of them have been met with, "Is that all you got?"
Yeah,
You know,
lackluster at best results.
So what they will probably look to do in the marketplace is catch the market at an illiquid moment, and that will be probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Because when the markets
Christmas.
get into holiday mode, nobody wants to put a new position on, but a stimulus package of a decent amount is going to force people into the marketplace. and those get the biggest moves.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be a bad time for one of those YOLO plays on like the MSCI, plays out there, one of the ETFs that covers a broad spectrum, because when those do take off in China, those will move 10, 12% immediately,
Yes,
like you
exactly.
said. Yeah, so that will be interesting to watch. We got jobs numbers coming out on Friday. I know we had, I believe, Eurozone has some stuff with the French elections today. Will that happen before we close the markets today, or is that tonight?
Now that's usually in the late afternoon of New York, and of course,
Okay.
a very vulnerable time when liquidity, because of the
Getting
rest of the
low.
world,
Yeah.
right? So, look for the French no confidence vote in their parliament. That's what we'll be watching for.
Yeah.
We know we have German elections in February. So, and that's again a no confidence type of vote. So, you've already got the two largest economies of Europe in very unstable territory. And
Right.
that's why I'm watching this euro dollar very carefully as a major part of the dollar index. It's over 50% of the Dixie. I watched the 104.70 level because I think if that breaks decisively on this vote, you're going to retest the lows at 103.40. Resistance right now, I'd be a seller anywhere up close to 106. But I really am looking at this euro as perhaps making the last leg of this dollar surge down to parity on a
Yeah.
break of these support zones that I've talked about.
Yeah, and you've been all over those, so it's definitely something that we have to keep an eye on without a doubt. Uh, when it comes to forget where I was going there. I had something and then I lost it there. So we'll just
All
keep
right.
going. I apologize. On there. Oh, I don't know if you saw that news. Brazil is pushing forward. They're definitely struggling with their economy too. I think we're going to see some things break there. Is there a trading period to worry about or to watch there when it comes to Brazil?
Well, it's a very controlled currency pair, primarily done with NDFs, non-deliverable forwards, which is a whole nother side of foreign exchange. So it's not necessarily a free-floating currency, although onshore Brazil does trade. So Brazil has interest rates over 11%, and they're suffering in their economy. So something's
Right.
got to give.
Yeah.
The same thing can be said with Mexico at interest rates of 10 and a quarter percent, although they did have very good employment numbers that just came out yesterday. Watch the Mexican peso very carefully, 2034. If this dollar goes into a sideways move, if the focus comes off of Mexico and Canada, then you might see the MEX at 11, at a 10 and a quarter% interest rate return, be a good currency to buy, sell dollar, buy MEX. That's the great
And
thing
we've
about
seen we've seen Buffett do that a few times in the past where he's gotten into
correct.
those companies at these type of times. So that would be interesting to see. I came back and realized what I was going to ask you. Did you see? Looks like maybe Paul Austin for SEC chairman. Do you have any opinion on him? He's pro crypto for me. I'm happy, but I don't know a bunch about him personally.
I don't know much about him, but I'm going to say, along with this administration's picks, I would be looking for a pro growth supportive policy that's going to be great in your area because maybe
Yeah.
we'll finally get some movement by the regulators in the crypto space.
Yeah, and we're seeing, yeah, we are not to get into. I bore you with my crypto all the time. We get in there, but yeah, we saw a couple more senators and reps that bought crypto over the past week and put it on their Twitter. So it's funny how, here's what I'll tell you: politicians follow money. You say money moves first, you know who moves second? The politicians to follow it, because
Yep.
after crypto was so prevalent in the last election, right? It's amazing
Yeah.
all the people coming out of the woodwork that are, putting the laser eyes on their Twitter feeds. And, one guy, Collins, bought meme coins. I'm like, oh, God, this is not good for us.
You know, if the public can't do that, why should our government officials be able to do that?
Yeah.
I think that that's a ripe area for change ahead, and
Yeah.
rightfully.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's one that I've seen when they do interview people that it gets a little bit of bipartisan. There are people like Cynthia Loomis on the Republican side who say, yeah, I put everything in a blind trust and I don't even know. So when they asked if she owned Bitcoin was her thing, and she said, well, I owned five. And they said, they got on it. What do you mean you owned five? Did you sell it? And she's like, I have no idea. When I came into office, I put everything into a blind trust, and I have no idea what's in there right now. Because and we've seen it from Richie Tories and Democrats on their side, saying the same thing. It's crazy to me that the guys on CNBC are held to higher standards of what they're allowed to invest in than what our elected officials are, because they can only own ETFs.
Well, having come from a very oppressive regime of when I worked, where you couldn't even scratch your neck without approval.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so these there should be blackout periods if they're discussing legislation for a particular field. Stop. I don't care if it's in a blind trust. Your blind trust can't trade it. Just stay
Right.
away from it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you
No,
know
that's a great point. Well, and you see it the same way. Donald Trump Jr. joined the board of a company yesterday. It shot up 270%.
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, so it's like, where do you stop and where do it becomes hard. But yeah, I wish there was something more in place there that made more sense.
Made more
The
sense,
same way as they
exactly.
should be on the same Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security as the rest of the country. That's the one that if you want to see me get fired up real quick, just bring that one up on a bad day, and I'll start ranting and raving for you, because that is why do they get
Yeah,
treated better? But
yeah. But
go ahead.
all these changes go behind a lot of the perception,
Yeah.
especially given the weakness outside of this country, the perception of a stronger dollar.
Yeah. So any last words here for us as we ride off into the sunset here today?
Well, we've got, payrolls Friday. That's what we want to watch. That's
Yeah.
the next major piece to the puzzle here. But simmering is this geopolitics, which we have kind of like almost ignored. But now you've got Zelensky conceding yesterday that,
Yeah.
we can't keep going with this war anymore. And and then you've got Trump's recent comment to Hamas, release the hostages before I get
Yeah.
in
Or
to office.
else.
So, simmering geopolitics, which will immediately, either one of those that escalate, is going to be a surge back into dollar, back into US treasuries. So watch that carefully, especially in this 3 weeks ahead.
Absolutely. With you saying that, I said I was going to give you the last note, but I'm going to give a little bit of insight of what again was brought up yesterday. Was another takeaway that Anang had was that Trump's already being treated as the president. We don't normally see this, where heads of state are flying to shake the hand and again do all that, and that his word is carrying so much weight going into even before the end of the year, that is sort of unprecedented. So it is interesting to see. And I think it's also why we see Zelensky doing that, is that no one wants to cross him right now. No one wants to be the first guy that gets in those crosshairs. I think is what we see, and that's great for the world. Quite honestly,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so. Very
Peace
positive.
is peace is a great thing, and let's hope that that's the area we move for, because in wars human life is just sacrificed, and
Absolutely.
it's not a good thing. So
Okay, well, we'll leave on that good note. Thank you, Stephen. I will see you on Friday.
great, Howard. Take care.
Thank you so much, Quasar Markets Live. We have coming up at 11:30 Jeremy Vreeland and Matthew Tuttle. And then I also have interviews that our man Stephen Big Beat did yesterday with Jay Sutherland from Trade Pulse that is going to go up, and then a really great interview with Peter Thomas, the chairman of AU Secure Gold, one of the main men when it comes to the gold market, telling us what central banks are adding to their gold. I'll give you a little foresight. Poland was a big one, so we'll keep on tight, keep on track to watch that, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.